This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Brian Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
And Doc, as you know, one of our fine partners at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is The Athletic. Premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. And you all can get 20% off the first year of an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.com/DSP. And welcome to the latest, the freshest edition of Tiger Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito Geronimo Chirco, alongside my usual sidekick and broadcast partner in fun. That is the Doc from Doc and Jack, John Charles Macaroon. John, how are you doing?
Vito, what a way to watch baseball over the weekend. The Tigers destroyed a team that was subpar. It was nice to see, but then reality struck, right? The Detroit Tigers went to Cleveland. They had to face Corey Kluber. And when you have 2 hits versus the White Sox, it looks totally different than when you have 2 hits versus the Cleveland Indians. It was fascinating to watch Corey Kluber dismantle the Detroit Tigers offense. Man, what a performance. Wow, Corey Kluber. But look, Vito, what did we ask for a couple weeks ago when the season started? Look, if you play around 500 ball, you're going to surprise a lot of people. And it was nice to see the Detroit Tigers go to the South Side and crush the White Sox. Happy birthday, Dom. And
yeah,
it was
happy
nice,
birthday to him, huh?
It was nice to see the Tigers play a team that was worse than them by far and go out there. And look, they didn't play their best baseball. I mean, they had 2 hits and still won a game. I don't recall too many times where I watched a baseball game where they win 1-0, I believe, and get 2 hits. But hey, you'll take it. You know, prior to the Cleveland series, they were 4-4, and it's a big week, Vito. It's a very big week playing the Indians and the Yankees. I'm hoping, again, try to be around 500. It's been entertaining. It hasn't been all bad, and that's a good thing. I think that in talking baseball with you, I'm a little bit more excited than I even thought I would be, just in terms of the fact that, look, the Detroit Tigers are competing. That's all you can ask for, right?
It is, but you know what I find funny, really hilarious to me, is that the Free Press and News and these publications are writing articles that are positive about the Tigers because guess what? They can't write positive articles about the Red Wings or Pistons. The Tigers are the most positive team to write about right now, and guess what? They were 4-4, and these publications are writing stories about the Tigers for being 500. That's all, and then they go into Cleveland, and guess what? They get beat by Corey Kluber, the Klubot, who we should have expected for that to happen. But really, you know what? Francisco Liriano, he was solid, wasn't he? And that was good to see. That's something positive for the Tigers that we can harp upon here, talk about in depth a little bit more. And that Mike Fiers, on Sunday, Mike Fiers was great. He threw fire, didn't he? I mean, he was like lights out. 6 innings, I believe. No runs allowed. I mean, it was like peerless, pretty much peerless on Sunday against the White Sox, the lowly south side of Chicago White Sox. But still, that's impressive in his debut outing with the Tigers. Then Liriano on Monday night, guess what he does? He goes out there and gets the job done, and against a real Major League Baseball club. A real one, not the Royals, not the Pirates, not the White Sox. We have a real one that the Tigers now are playing in the Cleveland Indians, a team that will win the division by 7-8 games over the Twinkies, I think, and could make a run to the ALCS, to the World Series. So the Tigers are finally getting tested, and they didn't look good. The bats at least did not look good Monday night, but at least once again, Francisco Liriano, the left-hander, did look solid against a real Major League lineup.
Who's been more of a surprise to you at the start of the season, Mike Fiers or Francisco Liriano? Fiers has done some things, has not gotten lit up, similar to Jordan Zimmermann. I mean, Zimmerman's last performance left a lot to be desired. But who are you more surprised at, Fiers' performance or Francisco Liriano in his couple starts?
Fiers only 1 start, and against the White Sox. So what does that really say, right? Against the White Sox, you saw them sweep the White Sox and do it pretty convincingly, even on the road. And how about their opening day last week? The White Sox opening day was horrible weather conditions once again, all throughout the Midwest, all these horrible weather conditions, games being rained out, snowed out. I mean, there was snow falling last week, all the rainouts for the Tigers. And we have something to talk about later on in the podcast, too, about whether or not maybe there should be like a free ticket, free tickets given to anybody that has tickets to games in April. Maybe these people that have those tickets to games in April, Doc, get a ticket later in the season to a game. Maybe that should happen. I don't know. At least with the Tigers, when you're a lowly ball club, you're going to struggle getting people to show up at the ballpark. Maybe that should happen. And we'll talk about that much later on in this week's edition of Tigers Talk, too.
Okay, so you've been impressed with Francisco Liriano. I mean, he made one mistake, and unfortunately in tight games, just one mistake, giving up that home run to the Indians, cost the Detroit Tigers in that 2-0 loss. But it's been okay. He's been locating his pitches. He seems like he's poised. It's just one of those things where you look at Fiers and you go, well, how often can he really, utilize just a 90-mile-an-hour fastball to get guys out? In cold weather, you can get away with that versus the White Sox when the season turns and the weather gets a little bit hotter. How can Mike Fiers continue to get guys out? That's going to be the question. I do think that I'm more hopeful that Liriano can sustain this, and maybe you flip him at the trade deadline. But it's okay to feel happy that these guys are performing, that the Tigers aren't just going by the wayside. And it's nice to see Victor Martinez and Miguel Cabrera handle their business and contribute a little bit. So I think it's okay to be happy at the start so far. Just one game under 500. It's not that bad.
But it's also, who do they beat? Right? Nobody really so far, because now you're playing the big boys, in my opinion, of the American League, the Indians, and then the Yankees back-to-back. The Yankees have struggled kind of out of the gate. We've seen Giancarlo Stanton not look the greatest. Other guys with the Yanks not look the greatest. The Red Sox have started out hot, though, in the same division as the Yanks. Maybe they'll sustain it. They've got JD, Dave D. They've got David Price looking great so far out there in Beantown. But anyways, back to the Los Tigres and what they have done. I'm still not convinced, but can we take some positives? Yes, we can take some positives out of this season. But like you said, when the weather warms up, as you know, Doc, and other baseball fans know, typically the bats warm up. So Fiers probably will go cold at some point, don't you think? Where Liriano, I am more optimistic too about him. And, his stuff can be deceptive. Like, he throws a wipeout slider, has movement on his pitches, his two-seam fastball can dart in and out. So he looks good at times, has looked good so far. The thing is, realistically, as the season does go along, him as a starting pitcher, can he really sustain starts where he goes 5 to 6 innings start? He probably won't be that guy that you can rely upon for 5 to 6 innings a start moving forward. As the season does progress, the bats warm up and the Tigers play better and better teams.
Exactly. And so I think that maybe the signing of Liriano can be one where the Tigers can take advantage. I think he's got some stuff. He's got the experience. He knows kind of how to pitch to contact. And, hey, that's what you got to do. You're not going to rack up a bunch of strikeouts. Pitch to contact. Utilize that defense, especially at Comerica Park. You can go out there as a pitcher. If you really learn how to pitch to contact, the art of pitching, as some would say, you can get a bunch of guys out. But unfortunately, in those close games, you do realize that sometimes, hey, when your pitchers are doing something, you got to bring it offensively. I think one of the areas of concern right now that you're seeing is the Tigers are slumping offensively, kind of going a couple games where they're not scoring runs and a couple games where they're getting just 1 and 2 hits. I mean, Corey Kluber's performance was great, but it seemed like the Tigers maybe missed some opportunities to take advantage. I know Kluber is a guy that's well-respected in Major League Baseball, but you got to bring it. You got to work the count. You got to kind of force the pitcher to play your game. Give yourself an opportunity to hit the pitch that you want to hit. Dude, it looked like the Tigers were just like, oh, Kluber's on point. We stepping out. We ain't doing nothing. And it stinks right now because you do think the offense can be a little bit better than it is, especially since the pitching has kind of kept the ball club in a lot of games.
The pitching has picked up its end of the bargain, right? For the most part. Guys that haven't hit include, in my opinion, at least most notably, Jose Iglesias. Has looked lackluster completely at the plate, light hitting as we already knew going into this season. But he can't even hit. Can't even hit a fastball right now. It's like he's bailing out, just giving up on plate appearances. Not looking locked in at all right now, Doc. And Dixon Machado, at least at second base, starting out full-time for the first time in his major league career, is actually looking like he is locked in completely. And that's great to see, where he's had some hard hits into the outfield, some extra base hits. And when he's producing extra base hits, we know he's doing something right, because not really a lot of people out there, I don't think a lot of people at least, expected him to be doing that. And I don't expect him to keep it up. But anything close to what he's done, Dixon Machado at the plate, him moving forward, doing anything close to that, I think will be big-time progress and a big-time positive for the Tigers, too.
So I'm curious. I know Dom listens to each and every episode of his brother's podcast, The Best Podcast. You see that little quick video I put of Jack Harbaugh?
I liked it about me. Yeah, it sounded like he was saying Vito. It was funny.
It was very good.
Yeah.
So it was very good. So I know that Dom celebrated, I think, his 22nd birthday.
Yeah.
And I know he listens to the fine Tigers Talk podcast, Brian Pena's favorite podcast in the United States. So fill me in. How was Dom this weekend? Because I know he's a Chicago White Sox fan, and the Tigers went in there and just swept him. So was he down a little bit? Was he like, man, the White Sox are atrocious, and it's just another thing where he can't get behind the Tigers, and he has to support a team like the White Sox, who are just god-awful. What was he like?
Yeah, well, the Tigers and White Sox both garbage. But yeah, I'm lucky the Tigers did take advantage of playing the White Sox right now early on in the season. So Dom was a little bit down and out. He didn't cry, though. I didn't see him visibly cry, at least maybe in his bedroom late at night before he went to bed he cried. And cried a lot of tears. But I think he realizes, too, as we do with the Tigers, that the White Sox aren't going to be good. And it's more important to lose. We want these teams to suck, to stink up the joint. We really do. We want them to tank, and they're not tanking. The Tigers now are screwing it up by winning. We want them to tank and to get that number 1 overall draft pick in the Major League Baseball amateur draft next season as well.
I definitely wanted to get into this because I was surprised at the sheer number of people that messaged us that they were upset that the Tigers were winning. And I was kind of joking around a little bit saying, oh, the Tigers are winning. The path to the number 1 pick, the Tigers can't even get that right.
I saw that.
I was joking around. And some people took offense to that. And they were like, dude, can we just get to the All-Star break before you guys start hammering this whole team tank, that teams go out there to play to win, that it's not right to talk about this? But are you one of those guys when we talk about, it's okay to be happy for the Tigers' success being around 500? Are you okay with them winning ball games? Even though you know that the team is not going to really make the postseason or really contend for anything serious, are you okay with them going out there competing and winning games if it means they don't earn the number 1 pick? Is it just number 1 pick or bust? Or are you saying to yourself, you know what? The Tigers right now, with the manager that they have and the level of talent that they have, they just can't go out there and be like the worst team of all time. They can't be the Royals and the White Sox. They can just be the 3rd place team in the Central and maybe just be like 10 games under 500. Does this roster, is it even bad enough? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Is this roster even that bad enough to go out there and earn the number 1 pick? People are like kind of conflicted in terms of when they message us, they're like, don't talk about that. Just go out there and watch early on and don't worry about the team tanking. They're kind of a little bit tired of talking about it that way.
Well, remember who you played, though. I think as the season does go along, the Tigers will lose a lot more games than they do win. Once again, playing the Indians and Yankees back-to-back, 2 of the toughest teams in the American League in all of Major League Baseball. So with that being said, they're going to lose a lot of games coming up here, and I just hope they do lose. But I think you take a little bit of positive out of the progress of players of the team as it goes along, but you still want to see them lose a lot more than they win as the season does go along. And I guess take a little bit of elation out of maybe them winning the first couple of, a game in the first series or two, the first couple of series. But as the season does go along, as a fan too, I want to see the Tigers lose because I want that number 1 overall draft pick. And by them winning, what is that good for this year? If you win 70 games, what is that going to do for you? A 3rd place finish to win 75. You're way out of the playoff race. Then you're way out of the contention for the number 1 overall draft pick too. So you're way out of both things that really mean anything to you as a Major League Baseball club and as fans of that Major League Baseball club. So by being a 70 win or 75 win ball club, you're in the middle of the pack for everything. And too much in the middle, not close enough to tank and to get in that number 1 overall pick and to be in a playoff contender.
See, Vito, it is really just a hard topic to talk about because that is the goal basically for the Tigers, is to lose a lot. But it's hard because, like I said, they aren't the worst collection of talent. They got guys that are making $20 million plus. They got a little bit of talent. So that's the tough part, is that if you really wanted to do it, you needed to find a way to get rid of Victor. You need to get rid of Jordan Zimmerman, Miguel Cabrera. Then you basically could assemble the worst team of all time. But in the end, in the absence of that, you're going out there and competing. You're thinking that, look, versus the White Sox and the Royals, you can be competitive. But when you get to the big dogs like the Yankees, the Indians, the Red Sox, you're probably just don't have enough even to stack up and win a lot of games. So I understand that concept, but yeah, people on our Twitter page were not happy. And it was basically about 60-40 in favor of don't worry about tanking, just go out there and play a game, and we'll evaluate a little bit later. They're still they're evaluating the talent that's on the diamond and seeing what is coming of it. So I was actually a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, that we got that reaction because we were joking around a little bit and people were just like, don't bring that up. It's a loser's mentality.
Well, maybe if you would have kept Brett Ausmus as your skipper, you would have been losing a lot more than they've been winning so far, the Tigers as an organization. And maybe they could totally tank because they would have, the worst manager in all of baseball, you could say, almost, with Brett Ausmus as the skipper. As he showed over the years in his, 4 years as manager, that he was indeed one of the worst skippers in all of Major League Baseball. So maybe if they would have rolled out with him this season as the skipper, maybe some different results would have formulated, and maybe different results would formulate as the season does go along. But still, once again, let's not get carried away here with thinking the Tigers now, because they started off 4-4. Now they're 4-5, by the way, so they're already a losing ball club once again. And they started off 0-3, 1-4. and they got to 500. That's not saying too much early on in the season through 8 games played, less than 10 games played in the season. So let's not get carried away on the fact that, the Tigers now are good all of a sudden and are going to be this competitive ball club day in, day out. Because guess what? They're not as the season does go along.
So, Vito, did you see who made an appearance for the White Sox versus the Tigers? Struck out 4 guys in a debut after being called up from
Was it your
AAA.
boy, Bruce Rondon?
He came up there.
Fire-throwing Rondon. No good for anything, Rondon.
He came in and struck out Miguel Cabrera, struck out 4 straight, and he's trying to resurrect his career with the White Sox. Had a decent performance. I laughed, I chuckled, and I thought of you and Dom, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Bruce Rondon is going to get a new lease on life, and he's going to finally throw strikes, but not for the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, finally look good, right? And not for the Tigers. You're right.
Yeah, what'd you think? Do you think he's got a chance with the White Sox to be successful, or do you see him basically now once he gets to the White Sox, he's going to start bouncing around Major League Baseball with general managers just trying to take a flyer on a guy like that?
Well, how can you bank on him doing anything of significance at the Major League level after seeing what he did with the Tigers for all those years? Come on. You can't bank on him being now a steady Major League relief arm all of a sudden. And I love his fire-throwing, a right-handed arm. That's sexy, makes him a sexy commodity, but only if he's throwing strikes consistently. If he's not throwing strikes, guess what, Doc? He's once again irrelevant. And then, guess what? He's relegated to AAA, to the minors once again. If he starts not finding the strike zone once again, which you've got to believe is going to happen with Bruce Rondon because of his past and recent track record in the majors.
Gotcha. So another player that we got to talk about, people are really fascinated with the talent of James McCann. And he's really becoming a polarizing figure because you know what you get behind the plate. Dude just can stop runners. He can limit runners from advancing from first to second. He's got a cannon for an arm. But the problem is his inconsistency offensively. And so you got a catcher that right now I think I've seen Gardenhire basically, when they got a night game and then they followed up with a day game, he's utilized Hicks a little bit more. But James McCann is an interesting character, an interesting player for the Detroit Tigers. Do you see James McCann being part of a long-term rebuild, somebody you can count on as he progresses in his career? Or are you viewing him as, look, this is a cat that's one-dimensional, you get the best out of him, and then maybe when his contract's up, you let him go or try to get something for him via trade? How are you viewing right now James McCann at this point in time in his career with the Detroit Tigers?
Well, it seems like every single time he's had a big A-B with the bases loaded, he has not come through. So he's not a steady bat yet, has a little bit of pop in his bat. But guess what? He's not the best pitch framer either, which doesn't help out a young pitching staff. So will he be along for the ride as the team continues to rebuild moving into the future? Well, I think it's all about, whether or not he turns it around hitting, but then you could also play a contrarian point of view here, the devil's advocate perspective, and say that James McCann, if he does turn it around at the plate, guess what? He becomes a trade commodity, and then he's out of Motown just like that. So I like that he is a McCann, has a sexy arm, accurate arm. He can throw out runners at a premium rate. But can he do anything else really of high value to sustain that starting job as the Tigers move forward as an organization deeper and deeper into this rebuild? I think it's questionable. And once again, if he does start hitting all of a sudden and shows off more and more pop consistently, then maybe the Tigers deal him for a nice package of prospects. Because remember, I don't think anybody's off the table when it comes to potential trades moving forward into the July 31 non-waiver trade deadline this season. Guess what? Nobody's truly off the table. If they're a hot enough commodity doing enough things right at the plate or on the pitcher's mound, guess what? These guys will be dealt and will be dealt for packages of prospects, including James McCann.
According to MLB.com, this season, 2018, 27 at-bats, 2 runs scored, 5 hits, 5 RBIs, a batting average of 185, OBP of 290, OPS 513. And those numbers offensively, dreary, Vito. Very dreary.
Below that Mendoza line. Whenever you're below that Mendoza line of 200, can't even hit 200, guess what? You're a subpar dude at the plate. You're a minor leaguer hitter. You're a minor league-esque hitter. When you can't hit 200, can't hit at least 240, even as a catcher that can throw out runners, once again, at a premium rate, be very high quality defensively in terms of being able to block pitches at a premium rate and look very effective behind the plate. But you know what? He's got to hit better than that, and guess what? John Hicks does as well. Hicks, who I thought maybe could platoon even with Victor Martinez at DH this season, because V-Mart needs more and more days off. V-Mart can't really hit and can't sustain a starting job, okay, anytime soon and moving forward in his major league career. So you need to find that decent platoon partner for him at DH, let's say. Hicks showcased the ability to hit for power last year. This season, not as much. Guess what his batting average is? Only in 2 games, 5 ABs, but Hicks's batting average is 000. Hasn't even recorded a hit yet, John Hicks. So if he's not hitting, James McCann isn't hitting, guess what? You truly don't even have a starting catcher then. At least it can hit. Think about that. That's how weak right now they are at catcher when it comes to producing hits.
Obviously, a position of need, one that we'll definitely continue to monitor because James McCann, interesting character, one that when obviously, the bases are loaded and it's time to get a key hit, not there yet. And, even though he's hitting below his career average is only in the 240s, 240 hitter.
He's about a 240 hitter at best. I think that's what he is. I think he's hit his ceiling offensively. That's what you can expect from him, 240 to 250 at the plate moving forward as a major league starting catcher, and you're not going to get anything better from him at this point.
All right, let's take our first time out. Second half of the podcast. You got a cockamamie idea, try to get free tickets. It's interesting, but I don't think it'll ever be realistically plausible, but I want to hear it. Very interesting stuff. We got Vito's notebook. We'll look at the series versus the Indians and the Yankees. Can the Tigers realistically compete? Maybe not on the road versus the Indians, but they do return home for a series. I think one of the rare series this year versus the Yankees. You get a chance to check out the Bash Brothers, and maybe, just maybe, Giancarlo Stanton will produce a 5-strikeout game here in Detroit. I know you all want to go out there and watch him, and I'm curious to see what the attendance will look like. I think the people that are going downtown this weekend, and the weather looked like it's going to pick up a little bit. It might be a little bit rainy, though, in the weekend series versus the Yankees. I'm fascinated to kind of see who's going to go down there really just to check out the Yankees, and do they produce? Do they go down there and do the boys of summer for the Yankees, destroy the baseball? Because that's what the fans want to see. They want to see the Tigers basically, throw meatballs to Stanton and Judge and, Gary Sanchez, and they want to see the Yankees do some things. But it could be an entertaining week for the Detroit Tigers. I'm curious to get your sense what they could potentially do versus the Indians and the Yankees and what's next ahead in the coming weeks. Right after this quick timeout.
And Doc, as you know, one of our fine partners at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is the Detroit Sports Commission. And since 2001, the Detroit Sports Commission has been responsible for bringing many, many marquee events to the Metro Detroit area, including amateur, national, and even international sporting events. And we've seen of late, just very recently, last week, Doc, an esports event sponsored by Red Bull, the Red Bull Conquest Rise event, be brought to the Motor City, to the lovely Garden Theater in Midtown Detroit. And many, many more events are on the horizon, including the 2018 Zenith Prep Kickoff Classic. And that is the premier high school football event in the Midwest, and really, at this point, in the nation as well. And for more info on all of the events that the Detroit Sports Commission is bringing to our very region, please follow the DSC on Twitter and Instagram at DET Sports. And make sure to check out their very fine website at DetroitSports.org. And back here on Tiger Stock with Chirco and Company. Was that the air guitar, the air violin? What the hell were you doing right there, John? Because I do not know what kind of instrument you were trying to play invisibly there. I mean, what the heck was that?
That was the air violin.
Okay.
I have so many memories of that song. That was the opening song to This Week in Baseball. One of my early memories. That's how I got into baseball. You wonder, I know you sit there and you go, wow, you really like college sports. You like football. You like basketball. How did you get into watching the Detroit Tigers? Obviously, I've shared it before, one of my early series that I actually went down to Tiger Stadium was seeing the Tigers take on the Toronto Blue Jays in a late season series for the Tigers to get into the postseason. 1987, they played a series late in the year versus the Toronto Blue Jays, and I was down there for I think 2 or 3 of the games. My mom didn't take me all that much early on, but I was 8 years old, went down to Tiger Stadium. It was packed, got the full experience with the peanuts, the hot dogs. The Tigers played a good series versus Toronto. I think they got their playoff berth. I think that year in 87, they lost to the Twins in the postseason. And the Tigers had a great team in 87 and they just weren't able to capitalize and get over the hump. And I think the Twins actually were the team that year that took it down, or were a really strong team in 1987. So that's my early memories. But part of my memories of baseball was watching on the weekend, This Week in Baseball. It would just be a quick, update on some players, highlights, and that song. That's why I feature it on this podcast, even though I really never asked you if you liked it. I just love that song, and it brings good memories. So I was doing the air violin there, as part of, I don't even know, was a violin being played?
I don't even know what the heck the instrument is.
Yeah, it's
I'm
not
not a
violin,
musical
right?
dude.
Right.
But it looked like you were playing, the air violin.
that's
Quite
good.
impressively, if there was ever such a thing when it comes to the air violin and playing that air violin. But anyways.
Real quick before we get to your idea to try and get into the stadium for free, what do you make so far of my 130 appearances here on the Tigers Talk podcast, being the sidekick and partner in fun? I'm doing a pretty decent job kind of keeping the conversation flowing, being a little bit in the know. Obviously, sabermetrically, I'm not that much of a wizard, but I kind of feel like as the last 4 or 5 weeks have progressed, I've really outshined you.
Yeah, you're trying to. I know that.
No, Vito, I feel good in the chair. I feel like, you know what? I'm going to keep reading, keep being aware of what's going on, and keep holding my own, keep challenging you to do what's, you know what? I think what you did there in terms of getting yourself a new co-host has lit a fire under me, a little bit of
be
jealousy.
even better now.
To be
You're going to
even
work
better.
even harder now to impress me and to make sure that I know that you're the best co-host in all of Metro Detroit, right?
Well, you didn't show up today in a collared shirt. You showed up in a T-shirt.
I had to look good for Blair, not for you. You know what? I've become now of the mindset that, you know what? I'm just going through the motions with you.
Oh, yeah,
Doesn't
right.
matter what I do, what I wear. You don't care. I don't care. We're not impressed by each other. We're not infatuated by each other anymore or motivated by each other and what we say. And when we say something that even means anything to the other individual anymore, I guess it's just that we've come to that, Doc.
Oh, no. Are you saying our relationship has become stale?
It's becoming stale, dull,
No,
boring.
Are you kidding me?
Nothing, irrelevant.
I don't feel that way at all, Vito. Shame on you. I don't feel that way at all. Maybe next time then I got to maybe come back with a tan from the holiday or something.
You got to look really good for me the next time
Okay.
and up the ante.
Okay, maybe.
Okay, please
Okay.
do so.
Okay,
And keep
will do.
working hard. Keep trying to outshine me like you said you're going to try to do, and you have been, you said. But guess what? It's never going to happen. So keep trying, but it's not going to happen here on Tigers Talk.
Okay. So you have an idea because of the fact that during these games, in terms of what's going on in April, there's a lot of cancellations. I know that it makes scheduling a little bit hard if you're a fan, if you want to go down there only a couple times a year, and maybe you go down early April. Tickets are affordable, a little bit more affordable. They're not as pricey as they would be versus series like when the Yankees come in and things like that. You think that because of the cancellations that the Tigers should offer promotion, like a buy one, get one free type deal for games that are available in April? Buy one, get one free. Is that what you're saying?
Well, pretty much because of all the bad weather. And I know it's not really sustainable as a business model, right? It would never happen, would never fly, would never come to fruition. But I just want it to happen. So I'm saying, why not when you're a stinko ball club and there are rainouts, inclement weather, there's even snowflakes flying through the air, and cold weather is canceling games in late March, early April. Why not give these patrons of the ballpark a ticket later in the season to a game in June, July, August, when you know there's not going to be asses in the seats anyways, come mid-season, come late in the season, Doc? Once again, I know it's not a sustainable business model, but can't we dream as fans of the Tigers?
And I can understand what you're saying. The Tigers got to do a lot to bring fans in because early on the attendance has been pretty bad.
It has.
And part of the reason is, yes, the ball club sucks. And the other part is the weather. Who really, outside of hardcore diehards that want to go out to Comerica, who's going to sit in 37-degree weather and enjoy a baseball game? It's a little bit long, and there's opportunities sometimes where, you get 2 hits. Imagine you go down there, you want to watch the Tigers, and you get a 2-hit ball game, a pitcher's duel. It wouldn't be fun early on, so that's why you and I are staying away. We're not even thinking about going to watch the Detroit Tigers until maybe May or June. Minimally, that's it. I'm not thinking about going out there at all. I can sit at my home, go to the bar, have a good time. And heck, I can even stream it on my telephone when I'm out and about handling DSP official business. I can watch it on the phone. Why would I go out to Comerica right now? So even if you did, you know what, Vito? Even if you did buy one, get one free, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't take advantage of it.
You wouldn't do it, really?
Nope, I would not. I think right now the baseball club is more of a bar watch than it is to actually go out to Comerica. Like you said, you bought a handful of tickets for commemorative stuff, to get some stuff, maybe bobblehead nights, things like that. But outside of maybe dollar hot dog, dollar
how about
beer
like
night,
free food, free booze? I always go back to the booze.
Yeah.
And free food for you and the booze on top of that.
Possible.
Wouldn't people go to the ballpark more and more than they would normally for a game? Don't you think you would go even?
Maybe if there was a greatly reduced discount, like $5 tickets for the lower thing. But did you see? I wanted to get your sense. I don't think we've talked about it. They've extended the nets really far.
Yeah.
To down by like the dugout by the third baseline. And it kind of aesthetically looks like they put a lot of netting there. And I saw some people's views and things like that. I'm even considering that if I go, I'm just going to sit in the 300s. That sitting now behind home plate was something I always wanted to do. Maybe once I'll buy that first seat, that first row behind, get on TV, become TV Doc instead of the Florida Marlins guy. I'll be TV Doc and show up in some kind of outrageous outfit that gets noticed. But outside of that, I think you can get great seats. I've always taken my nephew third base side, second or third row in the 300s, and you get a great view, great sight line. And so I've always enjoyed it. Rarely when I've gone to Comerica have I sat even in the lower section there. It's okay. I've done it a couple times. But my enjoyment is getting the dollar peanuts from the vendors outside the building and walking in and sitting down, having a peanut and one beer, and enjoying baseball from the 300s.
Not spending $1 inside Comerica Park.
Heck no.
The cheapest route possible is one that you're taking as a consumer of the Tigers product right now. You know what? A lot of people have that mentality, even though I always, bark at you, make fun of you, right, for, I guess, being so-called cheap. But a lot of people would take advantage of, the cheapest route possible. If you can get the peanuts outside the ballpark, right, for a smaller price, reduced cost, guess what? You're going to do so. But I think a lot of people would come into the ballpark if you had free booze, free food. But you would need all that to happen, or discounted prices on all of the items inside the ballpark, all of the food, all of the booze, all the drink options inside the ballpark to really get people to show up in droves this season. And even with that, with trying that hard as an organization, as a PR staff, to get people to come to the ballpark this season, guess what? You're still not going to be able to pack the ballpark. You're not going to be, no matter what you do, but you can always try, and that's why I brought up kind of nonchalantly, without a very serious tone behind it, but the, offering of free tickets to another game later in the season if you bought a ticket or tickets to a game in April. Just because of all the inclement weather, and the inclement weather has obviously led to these cancellations, these long delays and then cancellations. And when you have all that happening, that's no fun for the consumer. The people going to the ballpark right now, when they go in, it ends up being a rain out, or, there's snowflakes flying around, it's frigid temps, and then you have to go all the way back home after you go to the ballpark, and then the game gets canceled just like that. And there's no baseball then. Or you sit in the cold. That's no fun, and nobody wants to be a part of that, and that's why a lot of people like you and I, Doc, we've already talked about it, we're not going to early April, mid-April, or even late April games.
Okay, so now this week, the Detroit Tigers, they face some competition, like you said. You're not too hopeful that they can compete with the likes of the Indians on the road and then coming back home to play the New York Yankees. How are you viewing this week? What's going to be key for you? What are you going to be watching for? And next week, what are they looking at next week in terms of rebounding from playing some decent competition?
Well, at least they're at home against the Yankees after this Indian series. And yeah, 4 against the Indians, all 6:10 start times, which I've heard be made fun of. Like, why are you starting the game at 6:10 Eastern time when people are eating dinner or just coming home from work? Like, who's going to go to the ballpark? Even with the Indians being the home team here, a good team, a team that can draw fans. Cleveland still, this time of year, same kind of concerns and issues as the Tigers with the inclement weather, the frigid temps. So who's going to show up to the ballpark at 6:10? And as the night goes along, guess what? The weather gets even worse. And that's why these teams have their games starting at 1:10 on a regular basis, because of these frigid temps. So starting at 6:10, especially 6:10 instead of 7:10 even, Doc, it makes almost no sense to me, but that's almost beyond the point here. And I could see easily, to break it all down now, the Tigers are losing 3 out of 4 against the Tribe. I already lost game 1 with Kluber on the mound. And the Indians have a lot of great starting pitchers. And going in this series, the Tigers don't have as many, obviously, not as well equipped. And the Tigers aren't as good of a team, and they're not going to be a good team this year. So should they lose 3 out of 4? They should. Not only can they should lose 3 out of 4, and I hope they do, as a Tigers fan that once again wants to see the Tigers tank to a large magnitude and hopefully get the Tigers the number 1 overall pick next year as well. And you move on then from the Indians to the Yankees. 3 with the Yankees, at least at Comerica. But what kind of home field advantage do the Tigers even have this year? They don't have a true home field advantage. There's probably going to be more Yankees fans at the ballpark than true Tigers fans watching Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, Didi Gregorius, who, by the way now, Gregorius has the most RBIs in a single game by any Yankees shortstop in Yankees history, something like that, with an 8 RBI game, or the only Yankees shortstop to have an 8 RBI game, something like that, which is just crazy to me, but it's true. And the Yanks, they are truly the Bronx Bombers this season. They are a team to watch out for. They haven't started so hot out of the gate, but they have the lineup and the deep pen. Their pen is their strength, almost even more, you could say, than their power hitters, the middle of their order. And once again, Gregorius is a guy that can hit for power. So it's not just Gary Sanchez and the two most well-known guys in their lineup, which are Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. Those two guys are great, but they will K a lot. And the Yankees as a whole will K a lot. The hope is for the Yankees is that they just run produce, right? They hit for extra base power. They produce the long ball, and they produce the RBIs. And they should, especially taking advantage of that short right field porch at Yankee Stadium. And then you have a few more series at home, including against the O's right after you play the Yankees. And then after the Orioles, the Tigers take on the Royals for 4, including one additional game because of a game that was already postponed early on in the season. So you have the O's and Royals back-to-back at home after that big home series, 3-game set with the Bronx Bombers over this upcoming weekend. And that's a must-see weekend matchup. The other two, you're not going to get many consumers coming to the ballpark for the Orioles this year or the Royals. And the Royals, once again, might be worse off than the Tigers. Once again, they already have Salvador Perez on the DL for 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 3 to 5 now. And their rotation, like Duffy got blown up the other day, and his first start, I believe it was, of the season. So that was, early on, small sample size. You can't take too much from that. And they have a nice young starting arm who's looking really, really good and sharp right now, and Jacob Junis. He's a guy to watch out for, who is tied for the Major League lead, all of the majors, with the best WAR among pitchers in Major League Baseball as we entered the recording day, Tuesday, for this podcast. Yeah, David Price and Max Scherzer, 2 former Tigers right there with this Jacob Junis. He's come out of nowhere to be very, very productive for the KC Royals. And now I guess he's a guy to look out for, and he's a reason to be positive if you're a KC Royals fan right now.
Vito, I think I agree with you. On the road, Progressive Field in Cleveland, I think it's going to be tough to come by victories. Versus the Yankees, though, they're surprising. They're playing just about 500 ball right now. If you can get the big guys out, if you can control that offense, you can do some things. And I think with the compete level of the Detroit Tigers, I do think you have an opportunity to win the series. I think you said 3 games versus the Yankees, 4 versus the Indians. You got to try and get 1 or 2 versus the Indians, and you got to try to win the series versus the Yankees. At home, I think they're going to be motivated. I do think there's a significant chance that they can win 2 out of 3 versus the Yankees and kind of kick off the next couple weeks. I do see the avenue of compete. When you look at the Tigers, the one thing that you're starting to see is they respect Ron Gardenhire and they're competing. So versus the Yankees, you get a good pitching matchup and it works out in your favor. You can get 2 of 3 versus the Yankees and start the next couple weeks off where you're playing around 500 ball after you recover from a disastrous series versus the Indians. I do think that one advantage that Ron Gardenhire will bring is that he's not going to let this team get too high, not going to let the team get too low, and it'll be an opportunity for the team to compete. When you've seen a couple games now, even versus the White Sox, they came back and ruined their opening day by coming back.
In that first game. Opening day, like you said, it looked like they were done, right?
Exactly.
It really did. And
they
came
back,
done. They won that game.
They fight, so
yeah.
I do like the 9-inning mentality of the Tigers, and just kind of watch out. Heed my words. The Detroit Tigers are going to compete in this week and try and continue to ride the success. Sitting right now at this recording 4-5. I think there's an opportunity to continue that success. And remember last year's team started the year off 12-12. They started the first month, and I kind of forgot that I was going to pick up a schedule and
then mark down each game. I think you were doing that last year to start off at least.
I got to do that. So if you're at Little Caesars or you know anyone that got the schedule, throw me one. Because usually I pick up 2 or 3, and I'm surprised this year I just haven't, obviously not going out to eat as much. I'm not going out to many
You're
places.
on that great diet. You're looking solid, man.
You got it. So this week, watch out for the Tigers. Heed my words. I'm a little bit more optimistic than you are. I think they can compete after the series versus the Indians. The Indians are the class. You know that. But versus the Yankees, they haven't been world beaters just yet, and you might be catching them at the right time. So, Vito, hit me with your notebook before we get out of this podcast. What's going on with your notebook?
And really quick, Sparky Anderson once said something like this. It's when you play them, as well, when you play the teams, and they're probably playing the Yanks, I'll give you this much, Doc, at the right time. Moving on now to Vito's notebook. And kind of still talking about the Yankees. The theme of the Yankees, the Bronx Bombers are big sluggers. Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton. I already talked about a lot on this week's edition of the podcast. And everybody is talking about those two guys, right? Specifically, and loves those two guys and is enamored by the huge power of that duo. Well, hey, specifically, Giancarlo Stanton hasn't gotten off to the greatest start. He struck out more last week, striking out 16 times than Joe DiMaggio did in all of 1941 when he struck out only 13 times for the entirety of the 1941 campaign. How about that stat right there, Doc? Showcasing how much Giancarlo Stanton already has struck out this season. And just in 1 week, speaking of last week for Giancarlo Stanton and all the Ks that he racked up.
Yeah, I think that Yankee fans really are spoiled in that they know they got a guy that can hit 50 home runs, and they booed him that first go-around when he struck out 5 times. Then in his next at-bat, the next game, he came back with a home run. So it's a little early. Remember, Giancarlo Stanton's coming over from, a really terrible situation, making his way. He's going to drop 40 to 50 home runs. Don't boo the man. Come on, that's Bush League.
Yeah, it's way too early for that to happen. But in this day and age, too, guess what? Teams embrace the long ball with the analytics, the movement of analytics. Guess what? They don't care if you K. So Giancarlo Stanton K'ing a lot. Guess what? If he hits 40 to 50 bombs, people will look past the fact that he's striking out probably 150 plus times this season. And now moving on to another part of Vito's notebook and about Shohei Ohtani. Have you seen anything from Ohtani recently?
Crazy, man. He's taken complete games. I love the fact that he's a full-time DH, smacking the hell out of the baseball, and then he turns around every 5th day, and he goes out there on the mound, and he's creating a buzz, getting guys out, striking out a bunch of players. Really a talented individual, and a player who was under the radar in spring training because there was so much hype. Some people were disappointed by his spring training, but once you got into the regular season, dudes lived up to the hype, and wow, what a major league debut for this guy. Really rare to see a guy that's a full-time now DH for the Angels, and then is out there and every 5th day trying to get guys out. It's really cool to see. The guy's an athlete, freakishly.
A two-way stud, and he's starting truly every 7 days just to verify also about him and what he has done so far, what he will be doing and expected to do with the Halos. As the DH, Tigers could use that guy right now as the DH, right? Push aside Victor Martinez. The Tigers would love to have a young guy as that DH that can hit for power as Shohei already has. And listen to some of these stats. And these first ones, or all of these, are from Jason Stark, now of The Athletic, a guy that we want to have on these airwaves one time on Tigers Talk. And Shohei Ohtani last week faced 34 hitters in a row over 2 starts without allowing a hit and only allowed 1 base on ball. How about that?
Nice. Good stuff, man.
Very good stuff. He threw 4 pitches, clocked at 100 miles per hour, hit a home run off of a former American League Cy Young Award winner in Corey Kluber. He hit a home run 3 games in a row in games that he played in. I mean, crazy good. That is Shohei Ohtani, the two-way stud that he is, and he could get better. He's young, Doc. He's like 23 and doing this. Imagine how good he could become and the two-way stud that he truly could shape into and become by the end of this campaign. A guy that could rack up a huge amount of WAR, be highly valuable, have the highest WAR this season, and not just the American League, but in all of baseball, and thus could become not only the American League Rookie of the Year, Doc, this season, but also the American League Most Valuable Player. Think about that. He's on pace with his hitting for home run, with his stud pitching so far and the starts that he has made with the Halos. He is on pace to become truly the American League Most Valuable Player. And he's got an AL MVP candidate in his teammate Mike Trout on his team. Think about it. He might outpace and beat Mike Trout for the American League Most Valuable Player award in his rookie campaign. That could actually happen. And he is the modern age, our generation's Babe Ruth. Think about it. Shohei Ohtani is truly that good. And you could say, at least right now, it's early on, it's a small sample size, but so far, so good, and so far as good as advertised is Shohei Ohtani in L.A. with the L.A. Angels of Anaheim.
Talk of Major League Baseball, if you don't. It's unbelievable, huh?
He has become the talk. And really quick, the top 9 pitchers now in WAR. And according to Baseball Reference, this status, and this was leading into Tuesday, the day of our recording. And you had tied for first, once again, this Jacob Junis of the Royals, a young guy, along with David Price and Max Scherzer, 2 former Tigers leading all of Major League Baseball for pitchers in WAR, currently leading into the day, once again, of this recording, Tuesday of this week. And then you have 2 other guys, one current Tiger and Michael Fulmer, and then Justin Verlander among the top 9 pitchers right now in wins above replacement. So 4 total current and former Tiger pitchers that are top 9 in WAR going into Tuesday of this week, Doc. Think about that. All the great Tiger pitching, all the great pitching talent the Tigers once had, and on the same roster. I mean, a lot of guys and a great collection of pitching talent that the Tigers no longer have, you can say as well. But at least we have Michael Fulmer, a young stud, the 2016 American League Rookie of the Year, a guy that could be, at least right now, to Doc, a favorite or, a candidate for the American League Cy Young Award. And if he keeps it up, listen to his stats here. An ERA below 1, an FIP of 3.33 through 2 outings. He is right now, you could say, a contender and a favorite for the American League Cy Young Award.
Woo, lots of good stuff this week, Vito. Man, I enjoyed this 45 minutes. I'm glad the season started. We get to extend the podcast a little bit. Man, we turn on the microphones here at our studio, and man, that was a fun recording, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Very good stuff this week.
Very fun recording, and maybe Shohei Ohtani becomes a home run champion like Mark McGwire once was when he was on roids. He just made comments recently to Jason Stark. Once again, a lot of praise for Jason Stark. He's part of this new show for the Stadium Network. You've heard about Stadium, right? Mm-hmm. And Jason Stark has this new show, and he interviewed Mark McGwire. McGwire, by the way, the Big Mac, said that he could have hit his 70 bombs that he did in 1998. He could have hit them without using PEDs. What do you think about that? I don't know. Interesting stuff there from Mark McGwire, the one-time single-season home run champion.
We wish he would have just walked the walk instead of talking the talk, man. But unfortunately, you got caught with it, so that's why the accolades are not raining down supreme for a guy like that.
He got caught juicing. And whenever you get caught juicing, guess what? You're always tarnished. The rest of the way, your career, your legacy is always, always tarnished.
Or you could become an announcer and marry the hottest pop star in the world,
You?
Alex Rodriguez.
A-Royd. And now, he's made a comeback. He's Mr. Stud now in the broadcast booth, a media darling. And we're just trying to become that as well and trying to marry superstar models and who you have, though.
I'm trying to keep mine on the side so no one knows about it.
You don't want your wife to hear about it or anybody else. There we go.
All right, Vito.
And we'll leave it at that.
Great recording. If you enjoy baseball, Vito, every single Wednesday, you know it. Lock it in. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Follow the network. If you see something during a Tigers game, you want to ask a question, you see something, follow us, message us 24/7. Someone will read it at Detroit Podcast. Thank you, everybody, so much. See everybody next week.
We'll keep throwing the heat on Tigers Talk. Adios.